Check it out. It's the Laugh to Learn podcast. What is going on, everyone? Welcome to the Laugh to Learn podcast, your weekly source for a fun spin on all the news you need to know about. My name is Jacob Paveo, and as always, I come to you from the Great White North. I totally forgot what I was about to say next. I forgot the intro. Once again, I come to you from the Great White North each and every Wednesday afternoon, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, fresh to download the entire world around. Listen to it in the car. You can listen to it in the house. You can listen to it on your favorite home product, whether it's a Google smart home device or one of those, Amazon smart home devices whose name I can't say because then she'll respond to me because she's literally sitting right beside me right now. You can listen to us on all major platforms. Yeah, just tell your smart home device, hey, play the Laugh to Learn podcast, and guess what? They will. So, very easy to check out the show. If you have yet to do so, hit that subscribe button. Thank you all so much for coming and checking it out. Had a pretty good week on the social meteors. Apparently, people like reels, so I'm going to start actually making them. It takes a lot of time because you have to, well, you don't have to. You can pay a company to do it, but I code the subtitles by hand. So it takes, for like a minute and 50-second video, right now it takes me like half hour to 45 minutes to do it. But I think I can get much faster at it. So that's what I'm going to start doing is making some of those reels, picking one or two maybe from each episode a week, and going back into the catalog and taking some of my favorite little sections, little snippets out, and publishing them for the world to listen to. It's also pretty good if you're a creator, which I don't know how many of my listeners are, but it's good to go back and watch or listen to stuff you've done because it helps you get better. I will say, for me, I have speech patterns that bother me, and I know because I've spoken to people about it, I know people that don't even realize it. They don't hear it when they're listening to me or when they're listening to the podcast, but it bothers me, and it's a way that I know I can get better at what I do. So if you can identify those things in your creative process, whatever that may be, even if, say, you're in business and you're rereading emails or rereading presentations or film yourself. Try a run-through presentation and film yourself. Don't just run through it, but film yourself doing it or record yourself if you're doing it over Skype or something like that. Or no one uses Skype. What am I saying if you do it over Skype? You're either using Teams or Zoom if you're working. But if you're using one of those platforms, record yourself doing it and watch it back or listen to it back, and you'll find ways to improve that you wouldn't have otherwise seen and that no one will see in you. They won't listen to your presentation and say something along the lines of, you used the word therefore too much, right? But you listening to it, knowing what you're planning on saying in the future, knowing exactly how the presentation's laid out, you might listen to it and be like, wow, I said therefore 6 times in 3.5 minutes. So those are the sort of things that I notice about myself when I listen back and always try to make better on it moving forward. And it's very difficult to do because you have to actively think about making that change until the change becomes natural. But it is something that can be done, and it's something, if you're in any sort of field that involves presentations or creativity, I encourage you to go through and do that. Yeah, as always, you know where you www.laughtolearnpodcast.com/store, www.laughtolearnpodcast.com. Use the contact page if you want to hit me up. You can also find all of my links to social media and all of that stuff. You know where to go. You know where to look. It's not your first rodeo. I think I already said it, but hit the subscribe button. Tell your friends about the show, and let's get into it. So this week, we are talking about the Kyle Rittenhouse trial. Of course, if you recall, last summer, during COVID, there were these Black Lives Matter protests in Kenosha, Kenosha, Wisconsin. And of course, the big story coming out of it was Kyle Rittenhouse, who shot 3 men. 2 of them died. We now know he also shot at one other individual who has never come forward, so we don't know who that is. But he did shoot at someone, and yeah, so that's what we're going to discuss. So he's on trial right now, as you probably know, and the jury is currently deliberating. So as of Tuesday night, the jury is still sequestered. They said they will not have a decision Tuesday, and they will resume Wednesday. So by all accounts, we should have an answer by Wednesday afternoon, if not Thursday, for a trial. It was 5 days of court time, and usually that leads to about 2 or 3 days of jury deliberation, although sometimes more. But we're going to talk today about not the trial specifically, because I'm not a legal expert. I can talk to the politics, though. Right? So we're going to talk about the politics of this trial and the division of the country right now, that being the United States, but it's spilling over because I'm here in Canada and we are seeing it here. There is a lot of division that the attention is focused around this trial, but I think it has very little, if nothing at all, to do with this, because when I compare this against other things, people are acting like this is an egregious thing, this crazy murder spree and whatnot. We literally talk less about school massacres than we do this homicide case, which honestly, a lot of legal experts are saying that he's not even going to be convicted on. So it's very interesting, and that's where I want to have this conversation. So to catch people up, as I mentioned off the top, last year during the Black Lives Matter riots, I'm not calling them protests because they started that way, but certainly when it's 11:30 at night and there are buildings on fire and bricks being thrown through windows, it becomes a riot at a certain point in time, right? But Kyle Rittenhouse shot and killed 1 man, started running away from that scene where he got tackled by someone else, shot at that guy, missed that guy. Another dude with a skateboard swung the skateboard at his head, tried to grab the gun. Kyle Rittenhouse then shot him and killed him. And at some point in time, he shot at somebody else and didn't kill them, but injured them. So basically shot at 4 people, killed 2, hit 1. The 4th one we know nothing about. He's been charged with first-degree reckless homicide for the first shooting, first-degree recklessly endangering safety, and then he was charged with first-degree recklessly endangering safety using a dangerous weapon again, so he had 2 counts of that. And then first-degree intentional homicide for the second killing. Now, as I said, the legal conversation you can find basically anywhere. For some reason, no one's talking about the political conversation around this, where I'm looking at 2 sides in, obviously, left-wing and right-wing politics that are having 2 completely different approaches to this case. On the left, people want to see him convicted because they're saying things like if he was black with a gun, police would have shot and killed him and done all this stuff. And I'm just going to come right out and say that I watched the live stream of those protests. I'm pretty sure it might have not been this show. I know I recorded a show while talking with someone watching it live. So all my thoughts are out there somewhere on the internet. Literally watching live video of this, and like we saw some people getting beat up on the street live on camera. Just there were people going around filming this stuff live, right? So we were watching it all unfold. And we didn't see this, the Kyle Rittenhouse interaction, but just other interactions. And I will say, lots of black guys with guns defending property. Lots of them. This is just, Kyle Rittenhouse is just the one guy who actually shot and killed somebody. So I think it's a dumb argument to make. You can't make a racial argument around something that was not racially incentivized. He shot white people. He didn't kill black people. It's just a weird approach that I'm seeing on the left. And I think the reason for that is because if you look at the approach on the right, they are going after the legal, they're actually attacking the legal case here, because it does seem like there's not much of a legal case, and on top of that, the prosecution, by all accounts, has done very poorly in this trial. So it seems like he's going to get off, so the left, rather than attacking him legally, is attacking him morally, and the right is attacking the prosecution and, believe it or not, the police, which is something that we don't see the right doing too often, for pressing these charges, saying that they shouldn't have happened and it was clearly self-defense. And the two sides couldn't be more divided. I've watched panels and conversations, or attempts at conversation, and it just leaves me really, really feeling, I don't know, like, I feel like an odd one out in this conversation, because I don't like making comments about a legal case, because I think every single time, I think a jury is never wrong. A jury is never wrong, because a jury's job is to listen to the judge, who tells them the legal definitions they need to know, what the charges are that they are deciding on. The judge helps you understand that. And then you listen to testimony and evidence from the prosecution, who are trying to prove that you should press these charges or follow through, convict is the word I'm looking for, on these charges. And you listen to the defense, who is saying that, no, the charges don't exist. And the jury's job is supposed to take both sides, make the decision, and move on. And in this case, people are already attacking other people who are coming to determinations about the decision the jury hasn't made yet. And that's why I never make presumptions. And it's important to note that although there's probably not a single person in the world, let alone listening to me right now, who thinks that O.J. Simpson didn't actually kill them folks, okay? We all know he did. We know that he did. But I stand firm that the jury was not wrong in that case, because the case they were shown, the evidence they were shown, didn't prove he did it. And right now, what I'm seeing is individuals who are approaching these conversations with heart rather than approaching them with logic. And unfortunately, politics, law, these sorts of things are black and white at a certain point. When you get right down to the nitty-gritty, it is or it is not. There is no emotion involved in it. And it's funny to put it that way, because, of course, politicians tug at people's heartstrings for a living, right? That's what politicians do. That's what they love to do. That's how they get votes. That's how they get popular, is by emoting with people. But politically, something like this needs to be approached logically, just like climate change, just like really anything else when we're talking not about a candidate, but about an issue, which this has become a political issue. And my worry is that folks on the left are approaching it from a pure emotional perspective, that this guy brought a gun over state lines, which the judge actually threw out that charge ahead of time, didn't even let the jury consider it, because of some, which rightfully so, but because of some 1995 rule or law or something that said that basically he was allowed to do that because he was a minor or something like that. Some weird law that says, yes, he actually was allowed to carry this gun over the border. Actually, it's because of the length of the barrel of the gun. Okay, fine. So he's allowed to do that. But that is being focused on still. So something that the judge has already decided, black and white, we're throwing that charge out. Yesterday, which is I think it was Monday morning, is when the judge decided to throw out that ruling. He decided to say the jury can't look at this. Kyle Rittenhouse cannot be charged for illegally bringing a gun across state lines because he didn't by letter of the law. So many news shows sat there and talked about that decision all day. That's what they discussed. And I'm sitting here watching this, or watching the highlights of this, because obviously I was working during the day. I didn't have the news on. Sometimes I do, but I didn't on this particular day. So after work, I got caught up on the day's news, and that's all that I'm seeing from tons of outlets, is people upset about a judge's decision. And I understand being upset about decisions made by a judge and whatnot. I get it. But that is not the lead news story. And the reason that it was is because people want him to be convicted and gone for life. That's what they want. That's what these people in the news want. And I don't understand having that approach. I don't understand believing that because you think something is wrong, that person should sit for life. Because I'm telling you that there are a lot of people who think you live your life wrong, and what you do should be illegal, and you should sit for life for things that you do. And as I said, I'm not saying that he should or shouldn't, but I'm saying on the one charge that a judge already threw out and said, nope, he cannot be charged with this by letter of the law. That's what's being focused on. And that's where I started to get really concerned with where this is going. I heard a discussion comparing this to Rodney King, who, of course, was the black man beaten to death by police in the, I think it was in the early 90s, in Compton, California, South LA. Beaten to death by police on camera, and the police were let off. And I'm seeing people compare this trial to that. And it's simply not. You just can't use comparisons like that, because you are going to muddy the water. And that's like going to a bar and ordering a tequila shot, and they give you a 1/4 ounce of tequila and 3 ounces of water. That's what you're doing every time you make these comparisons. It's like comparing Donald Trump to Hitler. Trump was a bad president. Should have not been voted. I wouldn't have voted for him, I will say. Maybe he should have been voted in because obviously people liked him. But in my opinion, underqualified. But calling him Hitler is watering down the situation. If you walk into a bar ordering tequila shots and they start adding a little bit more water each and every time you walk in there, to the point that you're just taking shots of water, guess what? You're never getting drunk. And guess what? If you call everyone Hitler, you're never going to catch the real Hitlers that show up. The next one that shows up. Because there hasn't been one since the last one. There just hasn't. It's one of those incomparable things that one day will come back around. Because we can look at history and see people who we can point at and be like, bad guy, bad guy, bad guy. Donald Trump, not a great guy, but not an evil, maniacal person like Adolf Hitler, who literally ordered the murder of millions of Jews and did it. Not only tried to do it, did it. And when you start saying that this trial is similar to Rodney King, where a police officer beat a black man to death in the street for absolutely no reason, whereas here we have a legitimate legal defense being actively debated about self-defense, not even comparable. It's just not even comparable. Now, if he is convicted, good. That means that the jury saw enough on any of these charges to say that he should not have done what he done. He was not legally permitted to do it. Therefore, he's getting sentenced and convicted. Good. If not, good. That means the jury did not see enough to fully say that he unlawfully did. We know he did it. The question is whether or not it was lawful. And that's what the jury is currently, they're probably sleeping right now, but currently debating. Good. That's the legal system working. To say this is like an early 90s trial of a cop beating a man to death on camera is vastly, vastly overstating and over-dramatizing the situation. And I think one of the leading causes of concern that I have is by over-dramatizing a situation like this, what we get is this complete divide where no one can have a conversation with the other side. Because it's like having a conversation with a flat earther who is all in, right? We can sit them down with anyone from Bill Nye, Neil deGrasse Tyson, I don't care. Insert your public scientist here. Even Ken Ham, who actually believes the earth is round. Okay? We can sit those folks down and they will never, ever, ever see eye to eye because this person thinks that that person is part of an elite group that is lying to them, right? You will never convince a fully committed flat earther that they're wrong. Nothing you can show them, right? And that's what I'm starting to see on the left and right, is no matter what, the other side is wrong, and they always have these reasons built among minutia, like specific, deep-seated evidence to attack the other side with essentially no new relevant circumstance. It's an odd combination of basically a husband and wife who've been fighting for years that just don't talk anymore, and then they go to therapy one day, and it's like if you sat them down in a room together, it would probably take 5 minutes to realize that they agree on 90% of things, but because they just never sit down and talk, they're just going to fight, and eventually get divorced. And that's what I'm seeing in the world, in the West right now. The US, Canada, the UK, France, all of these places. That's what I'm seeing. Spain, we're seeing it. Germany. It's Germany less so, but it's still there. It's crazy, this left-right divide that is just growing. It's like a crack that keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And the thing is it exists within households. It's not like we've ever seen before where, Texas doesn't want to be here anymore. Or Quebec doesn't want to be here anymore. They want to, separate and leave the country, and they're making a stink about it, and it's a specific geographic location you can point to. This is different because I don't know how to deal with this. I don't know what to say to help this situation. How do you bring together two sides who completely disagree on the basis of reality? And I think this Kyle Rittenhouse trial is one of those things where the bottom line is, the key story here is that a young guy showed up to what was a protest, turned into a riot, shot and killed 2 people and injured another. That's the story. Guess what? Shouldn't have been national news. Shouldn't have mattered. Really doesn't matter. Kind of irrelevant to the rest of us. These cases happen all the time. The only difference was this happened at after a Black Lives Matter protest, which had, again, turned into a riot. And I don't know, that doesn't make it suddenly interesting. Like, this trial is simply not interesting. And I think the 24-hour news cycle is to blame here. I think the idea that we have to be watching what's going on 24 hours a day, and we have to care about things that historically we never would have cared about before. This is just a dumb kid who decided to be macho, brought a gun, killed 2 people, injured a third. It's not really a big deal to the rest of us. It shouldn't be. It shouldn't matter. The only reason it does is because we keep hearing about it. Now I have to do a whole podcast episode on it. Because why? Because it had something to do with Black Lives Matter? That doesn't suddenly make a case like this interesting. So I worry about what's going to happen moving forward, and I worry about exactly where this is going. Why a trial like this is so popular on an international scale. People are watching this around the world and acting like the outcome of this trial will have something to do with black rights in the United States. That's what's most mind-blowing to me. There are people who think that if he gets let off on this, white people are going to show up in droves and start killing people at protests and rallies and all this shit. And as a white person, I'm telling you, we're not going to do that. That's not the plan, okay? I can adamantly say that for my people. That is not the plan. That's not what's happening here. This trial should be irrelevant on a global scale. It should be irrelevant on a national scale. It's a local case of a dumb kid crossing the border with a gun, seemingly illegally, but I guess not, who may or may not end up being convicted, and that decision should have no implication on anything. But instead, what we're going to see is, if he's not convicted, there are going to be mad protests and riots, and people are going to be pissed off because he wasn't convicted. Or if he is convicted, we're going to see mad protests and riots because people are happy that he was convicted. And either way, it's going to be a shit show for that city. Again. And I don't understand that discrepancy, how people don't see that this is just something to discuss. It's like the news of the day used to be, everyone wanted to discuss war, right? Military action. That used to be the interesting thing that we've discussed for years. Now, because there's nothing going on, we have to make these stories out of nothing, because that's what this is. This is just a double homicide. That's what this is. This is a double homicide case. And guess what? There are hundreds of them every day in the United States. And they're trying to make something out of nothing to push these agendas. Both sides are doing it. And we have to catch on. We have to realize what's going down and start ignoring it. Start ignoring these cases and say, no, I don't want to hear about some dumb trial. I want to hear about the real news in the world. What's actually happening? What should matter? And guess what? It's okay if there's a day where nothing matters. It's okay if there's no news today. That's a good thing. Let's let that happen, right? Last week I did a podcast where I started by saying, hey, no news today. A whole week. And there was literally no news for me to talk about. And for some reason, there's still 24-hour news channels. And they were a little bit relevant in the time of Donald Trump. Because, there was literally shit to talk about constantly. That's the president doing crazy shit. That's something to talk about. But this is not something to talk about. And they have to make it something to talk about. Because if not this, they have to find something else. Because they have 24 hours a day. And I think there's 4 or 5 24-hour-a-day cable news channels. Plus, there's some now on the internet. There are 24-hour YouTube news channels. and some off YouTube as well, but like they're streaming 24 hours a day with someone sitting there telling you the news that you need to know about. Guess what? You don't need to know about it. There's not that much interesting shit in the world. Life is, for the majority of the time, boring. So stop trying to make it interesting by making up stories out of nothing. And that's kind of where I sit on this whole thing. Like I said, I don't care if he's convicted. I don't care if he's not. I think that if he's not, the jury saw the information and said, you know what, you didn't prove it to us. And if he is, then the jury said, you did prove it to us. It doesn't tell us anything. It doesn't help the world. It doesn't move the world forward. We need to start focusing on helping each other, caring about each other, not caring about this kid who lives like 100,000 million miles away from most of us, who we would have never known about. We would have never heard this story before. It doesn't matter. Learn about your neighbors' lives. Help them. Focus on them. Focus on your family. Focus on your friends. Don't focus on Kyle Rittenhouse, who is a nobody. Was before and should be after, but instead now, if he gets let off, all of a sudden he's been in the national news for a year. You're telling me he won't be a very wealthy man because of this? He will. He'll write a book. Even if he gets convicted, he'll write a book from prison, make millions of dollars, and live his life. He might be in prison, but he's going to live pretty well in prison. Just so you know. Yeah, he'll have people who are after him, but he will be well protected. Okay? And he will get what he wants. And that's just the way that it is because people made it that way. They made it that way for him. They made him a celebrity, both sides did, equally, when it should have just been nothing. This should have been a non-story, non-interesting, who cares? And that's kind of where I sit on this. I haven't really been able to watch much like a full news presentation out of the U.S. anyways, because it's just Kyle Rittenhouse, Kyle Rittenhouse, Kyle Rittenhouse. And I'm sitting here thinking, who the fuck cares anymore? It doesn't matter. It really doesn't. Just tell us, oh, remember that guy that shot those people? Yep, he's on trial. Okay. A week later, oh, that guy, he was either convicted or he wasn't. Okay, that's the whole story. There's nothing else to it. There's no deeper meaning that if he's let off, then, you know, the country is still racist, or if he's not, then we're progressing. And that's what we're going to hear, right? If he's convicted, wow, progression. It's not fucking progression. It's a simple trial. There is no changing of legal standard or precedent here. Nothing. It's just a basic fucking capital murder charge, along with an accidental homicide and whatever the fuck the other one was, reckless endangerment or whatever. Like, come on. There's nothing to talk about here. It's literally a non-story. There are Supreme Court cases right now going on we can discuss that are having actual changing legal definitions. We're still waiting for the Supreme Court of the United States to analyze, which they're going to be doing it in the next few months, the abortion rights in the country. They're going to be looking it over and making an actual updated decision on abortion in the United States. That's a fucking story. That's something we can talk about. That's something with actual, left and right have firm decisions here. No one's, riding the coattail of a trial to get funding and all this dumb shit that's going on right now. No, that is a firm belief that people have or they do not have, and it is deeply rooted politically, and there's a huge trial coming up on it. That's the type of shit that we should be discussing and that I like talking about. This? Come on, man. There's nothing to talk about. It's a non-story. So I'm going to stop talking about it. Thank you so much for tuning in this week. If you're not already, go follow me over on Instagram. The link is going to be in the description of this podcast. That's where we're doing well. The reels are getting views. I'm getting direct messages. I'm getting those, I don't know if you know this, but if you're on Instagram, you get these random people who add you and they're like, hello, me want sex now. And it literally is written like that. And then it's like, click here for more. I'm getting tons of those, which means I've got to be doing something right. When the sex bots are adding you, you've got to be doing something right. So, thank you so much for tuning in. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. Tell your friends all about it. If you want to buy either for yourself or for one of your loved ones listening to the show, or if you want to tell one of your loved ones that you like the show and you want this for a Christmas gift, you can go over to www.laughtolearnpodcast.com/store. All of the product, except the mug, is made in democratic countries. It's printed in the United States and Canada. If you order from the U.S., it's printed in the U.S. If you order from Canada, it is printed in Canada. Of course, the mugs themselves are manufactured in China, but all the T-shirts, all the sweaters, everything else is manufactured in South America. All the information you want and need is over on the website there. So go check it out, laughtolearnpodcast.com/store. I will be back each and every Wednesday, 1 p.m. Standard Time. Don't forget to keep on laughing and keep on learning.